Welcome back. Well, Mr. Kunle Adun is the Publicity Secretary of the NBA. He's here with us in the studios. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's actually a big challenge, a big issue, because, I mean, listen to this. It has huge implications, actually. Because if investors, for instance, are watching, and they think, look, if a country doesn't stick with the rule of law, they don't want to put their money in that country. So this has very huge implications. So how do we get here? Why does it appear that the NBA appears to be toothless or condoning these actions?
Very good question. Before I go into the merit of the question, let me just correct the impression that NBA is not condoning it. Rather, the NBA has made several efforts in trying to see that the rule of law is entrenched in Nigeria, not only in Nigeria, but in terms of foreign investments and even outside Nigeria, because as of yesterday, the IBA president was around. I think he's still around. He's going to be around till Wednesday, because we are talking about internationalizing human rights and rule of law. Because Nigeria's case is that of a case study. Because since the post-rule administration came into power, we've been having serious challenges with respect to rule of law. And all our NEC meetings, we've issued several resolutions, several statements condemning the rights violation in Nigeria. This, for the past 2 years, it has been very, very challenging because we have seen an increase in disobedience of court orders. And it's very pervasive. Very, very pervasive. You can recollect that some few months ago, we had a protest march because we felt enough is enough. If a court has made an order, you respect the order. And for crying out loud, we have a constitution that provides that Nigerians have fundamental rights.
So why is NBA Ikorodu branch standing out? What are they doing that all other branches don't seem to be doing?
Probably the major difference is that of publicity. Because I believe that other branches, we have about 125 branches of the NBA in Nigeria, and you will not expect all of them to be on the public fora at the same time or with respect, the same wavelength. So Ikorodu is in Lagos State. The media is actually centralized in Lagos State. So probably they have that advantage. Because I believe that other branches, I'm from Warri branch, and we have Efru and Udu branch, we have Binia, we have other branches, Kaduna branches. They are also doing their bit. And like what Fred Falano, Senior Advocate Nigeria, did say, all the branches have their human rights committees, and all of them are working. But the question is that, to what extent have we actually publicized?
Is it a question is it a question of publicity or effect? Because it's common knowledge that a good product will sell itself. So certainly, if you're doing something that is of public importance, most certainly it'll go viral. So how effective are these interventions that you're talking about?
Thank you very much. Because I was once vice chairman of NBA Warri, so automatically I was the chairman of the NBA Warri Human Rights Committee. You know what I was doing then? I, on my own, with members of my team, we were engaging members of the public, radio, TV stations, telling members of the public, if you have any human rights issue, complain to the branch and we will deal with it. And we dealt with it very, very well. So I expect other branches of the NBA to do it. And that is part of the engagement we are going to have today. Because the plenary today is on rule of law. Because everything we are talking about, violation of rights and every other disobedience of court order, it all boils down to rule of law. So we have important personality that will be on ground today. Good enough, Fred Falana will be there to also make his contributions. So I agree with you that publicity and enforcement, they go hand in hand. Because you can be very active with regard to what you are doing, and if you don't publicize it, members of the public will not know. So probably that is the difference between what Ikorodu is doing and what other branches are doing.
You also may have listened to what Mr. Falana said the other time about the lawyers being culpable in the number of people that are awaiting trial, and they're still there. They are awaiting trial. So how do you respond to that?
I'm not aware of facts like that. But if there's any case of lawyers being found culpable in rights violation, we have a procedure in the NBA. We have a disciplinary committee. The disciplinary committee
The question is that we have about 70%, of people awaiting trial, and they had lawyers. Many of them had lawyers, in courts and all, and who are supposed to be representing them, and their cases are postponed for months on end, and the lawyers just.
It boils down to judicial activism. It boils down to the enforcement of the provision of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act and criminal justice law of the various states.
And who is supposed to champion all of this?
Yes, the NBA is championing it in conjunction with the Mercator Foundation. because some of the states in Nigeria, they've not domesticated themselves Criminal Justice Act. But I think recently 2 states in the north, they've domesticated it with the assistance of MacArthur Foundation. And I think next month we are going to one of the states in the east. So the Advocacy of Criminal Justice Act has actually made sufficient provisions for the enforcement of human rights. But the question still remains that is the judiciary actually ready? Because in terms of structures, and when we talk about structures, facilities, we go back to funding. So we also need financial independence, autonomy of the judiciary to work. Because even yesterday, there was one of the chief judges of one of the states in Nigeria actually complained heavily that NBA, you want the judiciary to work, but where is the fund? Where's it coming from? So that's why the NBA is sharpening the cause of financial autonomy. And if that happens, with the provision of Advocacy Criminal Justice Act, everything will be in place.
Right. We hope to come to that a little further as we progress, but some of the issues that Mr. Falana also raised, I mean, even before then, there were those who thought that lawyers always had to accept every brief that they get, so they can't reject any brief, because when some members of society say, no, why should you be defending these kind of cases? But even moving beyond that, when you look at Rule 15 of the Professional Conduct, Rules of Professional Conduct 2007, that talks about representing clients within the bounds of the law. It actually does say there, if you look at 15.2, that even 2A says, well, in his representation of a client, a lawyer may refuse to aid or participate in conduct that he believes to be unlawful, even though there is some support for an argument that the conduct is legal. Then 2A says, after he keeps strictly within the law, notwithstanding any contrary instruction by his clients, if the client insists, he can actually withdraw his services.
Certainly.
And then we've seen lawyers who have argued that, look, why would judges, for instance, lawyers go on with certain ex parte cases which clearly violates the rule when they say, don't accept this? And then they talk about the LPDC, where they say, do you need funding for the LPDC to actually sanction erring lawyers and judges, even in states who don't agree or conform with these rules?
Thank you very much. As a matter of fact, the question I'll also ask, if you don't mind, is that how many of us have actually complained? Because that is a basic problem with Nigerians. We always hear our views, but how many of us really take it to the next level? Make a formal complaint to the NBA. We have a lot of petitions against some of our colleagues at the NBA Secretariat that have been dealt with because they go in, I mean, they are fitted, they go in stages. But the question is that these clients that are complaining, that are having issues, if you ask them, you say, none of them want to complain. And that is the culture of Nigerians. We talk, we don't complain. We talk, we don't complain. So, but I can assure you that as a matter of fact, a lawyer that is engaged in any unethical practice, the NBA will not stand by and allow that one
Sorry
to
to
be.
jump in. Those cases that you say are before you,
Yes.
do people complain about them?
Yes. Former petitions.
But
So
you say
people
we don't
actually
complain.
complain.
Former petitions.
So people complain?
Yes, some people complain. We have cases like that. But what I'm trying to say is that it is not enough to just go on here. It's not enough to just say in public forum that the question is that this person that has just raised this issue, has he complained formally? And let me use the opportunity to encourage Nigerians. If they have any case of unethical practice by any lawyer, please, they should report to the NBA. Because we are trying to also, in every 100, certainly you don't expect all of them to be the same. Yeah, it's like that everywhere. So we are ready to address all these issues of unethical practice, malpractice committed by lawyers, in respect of performing their professional duties. But we will need formal complaints from the clients.
You know, quick follow-up on that one. How quickly do people get, justice when they complain to the NBA about their lawyers?
Thank you very much. There's a procedure. Once a petition is sent to the NBA, and the petition meets all valid requirements, because apart from said petition, you have to the complainant has to deposit an affidavit or a statement on oath and attach it. Because what we found out is that some of the complainants, when they send petitions, they are not accompanied with affidavits, and in many of the cases they just withdraw. So the NBA has taken it further because we view professional misconduct to be an issue that NBA should handle frontally. So having submitted a petition accompanied with an affidavit, you don't even have the right to withdraw it again. So even if you want to withdraw, we can tell you, okay, no problem, it's not our case. So there are some issues like that we are still trying to
Well, how long does it take?
It doesn't take long, probably a few months, but it depends on the complainant still ready to pursue the complaint.
All right. So just by the side, I was looking at some of the issues on the lineup for this 59th Annual General Conference of the NBA, and I saw the Code of Conduct Tribunal on one hand. I saw a clash of judicial
that was yesterday.
and executive powers. I'm getting somewhere. Now, looking at this Code of Conduct Tribunal, we remember what transpired in the early part of the year and last year. We remember the clash of judicial and executive powers. So looking at the case of the former CGN, for example, does that mean or imply that the NBA is looking to probably rectify some of the things that came out during that period?
Thank you very much. That's why we made it one of, actually the first plenary session of the Annual General Conference, and it was well attended yesterday. A lot of legal juggernauts were there, judicial juggernauts were also there. So it's still our position that, because a lot of views were actually canvassed, that the Code of Conduct Tribunal is not, of course, not a judicial body, and they should actually be under the judiciary, not the executive. And being under the executive, that makes, and for it to be trying judicial officers, that's an anathema. So it's part of the engagement that we had yesterday that we are trying to correct. And I think, when we pull all the various controls yesterday, and I believe that going forward, we're going to have a proper reform of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. So, and the Bureau too.
No, this just snowballs into something bigger. How the NBA, pushes for these reforms. I mean, Mr. Falano earlier came and said that, you know what, you can actually do a lot as the NBA. You can push the government. You can say, this is what should be done, and you can follow it through. So on one hand, you have Nigerians, and you wonder how well Nigerians know their rights on one hand. I mean, also, I believe the NBA has a role to play in that, helping Nigerians know their rights. I'd like you to address that, and also how you're pushing the government to ensure that, the rule of law is followed to the letter. Thank
you very much. We have structures in place. We have the NBA Human Rights Institute, which is actually headed by the first Vice President of the Nigeria Bar Association. That's person in the name of Stanley Imo. And we also have all the 125 branches of the NBA. We have human rights committees that are headed by the various vice chairmen. And as a matter of fact, they also submit statutory reports to NEC. And statutory reports submitted by all the branches and the Human Rights Institute, they comprise of all the various right violations and the steps that each of the branches have taken with respect to right enforcement. And of course, like you rightly said, publicizing the various fundamental rights, issues of rights, so that members of the public will need to know that, okay, if my rights are violated, what do I do? And by the way, I mean, to what extent can I exercise my rights? Because, of course, there are limitations. So these are part of the publicity engagements that we are having with the public. But the question still remains. Members of the public, actually, it is even more of an executive problem. Because I understand, and I know very well personally, that we still have serious issues with the Nigerian police and the security agencies. Look, the statement made by His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, with regards to security, taking preeminence over human rights and rule of law, certainly, of course, the NBA has made the position no and stated that that is not right.
No, it was made by the Minister of Justice.
Minister of Justice, who represented Mr. President.
Right.
Thank you very much. So coming from there, we've been having serious issues. So we've been engaging members of the public that is not the position of the law, that's not the position of the bar, and that is part of, when you go through our programs, you see that a lot of all the engagement, the various sections, all boil down to rule of law.
Mr. John, why did you say if somebody complains about professional misconduct, you're trying to take away the right for them to withdraw the matter?
No. I didn't say that.
I can't say if he complains, if there's no affidavit, he wants to withdraw it, he can't withdraw it.
No, you can't withdraw
Explain,
it because ethics is something that the Nigeria Bar Association takes very serious. It's a complaint against our members. So the NBA will not be the prosecutor. So the person that is complaining at most will only be a witness. The NBA will be the prosecutor and the complainant. The person that is complaining will just be a witness. So if you now come and withdraw, for example, a colleague, a lawyer, has collected monies and has not performed the job, and you now make a formal complaint, accompanied with a statement on oath, and later probably after settling off record, you now withdraw. We say no. We need to know why.
They're not permitted to settle outside that provision, having complained.
Because it's an ethical issue. It's an ethical issue. Members of the public, you said they are complaining, so we want to deal with it. We want to get to the root of it.
So if anybody is going there, you must get to the
Yes,
bottom of
you
the
must get to
matter, as you say.
LPDC. Once a petition has been submitted, it must get to, I mean, if there's a prima facie case, it must get to LPDC.
Sometimes, I don't know if you can take this on, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Sometimes we have some issues, of national interest. And we have a situation where lawyers are at each other's throat on these cases. None comes to mind readily right now. I'm sure my colleagues can rescue me. But where, okay, for instance, let me just give an instance. In the case of the Code of Conduct Bureau, issue, there was this issue that, look, the Code of Conduct Bureau is about public officers, while the NJC is about
judicial
officers. Now, the case in question at that point was that, look, is it a public officer offense or a judicial, ethical judicial offense or whatever it is? Now, we have lawyers on both sides of the divide saying it's a public office issue, it's a judicial office issue. Why is it that sometimes we do not seem to be able to say, you know what, this is the position of the law, this is the position of the NBA? All of them are members of the NBA.
You know what? Should you have all lawyers agreeing, okay, this is the one position we all take, then probably we will not have any complaints at all. Oh. Actually, that's the interesting thing about the legal profession.
No, but the thing is, it confuses those who are not learned.
It doesn't with respect, sir. It doesn't. We have to say
because you are a lawyer. The people who are watching who are not lawyers are like,
we need to educate them.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. We always have two sides to a case. You are the plaintiff, I'm the defendant. So that's the two sides.
So who's
and
you
have your lawyer, you have your lawyer, I have my lawyer. Those are the two sides. Now, there is an arbiter, the judge. We present our cases to the judge. It is whatever the judge says that now becomes the law as at that time. If you are aggrieved, you appeal. So don't bother yourself about that you have two lawyers that are having contending positions. No, it is the position of the judge at the end of it all that matters.
Yeah, that happens. But some of the cases which many also think that is glaring when it has to do with rights to dignity of every person, talking about basic rights of criminal suspects in Nigeria. You say they have to complain before some of these things are taken up. But if you look at when he says...
I didn't say that, right to dignity of human being. You were talking about ethical issues vis-a-vis lawyers?
No, I'm talking about complaints against human rights abuses and complaints against practitioners, all inclusive. Okay. And you said they have to complain for you to take a look at some of these matters.
If you don't complain, how would we know?
Now, in this case, where it says, a suspect shall not be exposed to media parade by the police or any law enforcement agency. Do they have to complain when it's
Certainly, I agree with you. That is unlawful because the suspect is presumed innocent, and the NBA has taken position on that. That certainly that is wrong.
So do these people have to complain when the NBA sees it on TV and says, wait a minute, this is not right? So do I have to come and complain if I'm paraded like that?
The question is that, it goes both ways. We take up the matter for you, and later you're no longer interested. So please, document your complaint so that if you want to withdraw, we'll know what to do. I think it's just a formal process.
By the way, some of these people will probably never have access to you.
Access to what?
To you. They probably
to lawyers.
I mean, imagine they're suspects. I mean, they can't at that moment pick up their phone, send a mail, or
That is why we need to, the NBA is always engaging and still continues to engage the various chief judges of the various state judiciaries in the states, that the additional criminal justice laws of the various states must be enforced to the letter. But it goes down to funding. I'm not holding brief for the judiciary. Okay. Because you need to put facilities in place. We are the chief magistrates of the various magistrate districts will be visiting the various detention centers. And of course, allowances, provisions have to be made. You understand? And I recall that recently some of the branches in the Midwest and I think in the South, they've had a workshop on the AJA and ACJR, where some of the judges and even policemen and prison officials, they were there. So this is part of the engagement process, but I must agree with you, it's too slow. It's too slow. But it still boils down to funding. And I still strongly believe that if we have judicial financial autonomy, it will be faster in terms of enforcement of AJA.
But when you talk about funding as a challenge, many will struggle to understand.
That's the position of the judiciary. That's they need financial autonomy.
But we have lawyers in every sector of this country.
Thank you.
So Why is it that they can't have a conversation and,
Very
and
good.
say, listen, this is the challenge we have. In order to move democracy forward and help this country, lawyers in those positions, could you please pull your act together and let us get this question sorted out? Why can't that
Thank you very much. Actually, we have lawyers in government. The question is that, are they doing enough? A lot of them are attending this conference. We'll continue to engage them and we plead with them, please. Because first and foremost, as a lawyer, your first duty is to ensure that rule of law is always promoted. Your first duty is to ensure that the rights of citizens are always respected. So don't forget it. Once you get into a government position, that should be your first duty, not to your master. Because at the end of the day, if any issue comes up, the NBA can take you up on that. Because you are expected that any issue that has to do with rule of law, enforcement of rights, you should push the position of the bar. The position of the bar is promoting rule of law, and you're a member of the bar. So we continue to engage them, we continue to plead with them. That's the most we can do for now.
Even though justice is not easy to get, paying a lawyer, it sometimes can be expensive.
No. We do pro bono services. All the human rights committees of the various branches, they do pro bono services. They are not paid. Nobody pays them. It's free. So members of them should know that. So when they complain to any of the branches, they should know that they are not going to pay.
But over time, I mean, over and over again, you have said people should go ahead and complain. Mm-hmm. How? Okay,
it's very easy. I'm a member of Warri branch. A policeman has just unlawfully arrested, which is actually the norm with the police. Actually arrested a person and detained the person over, for more than 24 hours. We charged the person to court. Of course, some of them have relatives that go and check on them. I use the opportunity to also enlighten the members of the public that if such cases abound, they should report to the various branches. You can ask any lawyer, please, I want to go to the NBA secretariat in this branch. They will direct to the secretariat. In fact, the lawyer may even assist you to write a formal petition to the secretariat. And we have pro bono committees and human rights committees that will take up the matter and go to that station.
Okay, so what if you want to complain about your lawyer?
You follow the same process.
That's the ethics part.
Yeah, that's the ethics part. You follow
and remember,
the same process.
You can't withdraw.
Yes, you cannot withdraw.
No, I asked that because many people are watching now wondering, okay, so how am I going to complain about a lawyer to a lawyer? Are you
going to complain about a lawyer to the lawyers association?
Yes.
Yes. You can actually ask any lawyer, please, what procedure do I follow? The lawyer will okay, write a petition. Then it will direct you where to send it to. You can either send the petition through the branch of the NBA within that locality, or you can send it directly to the Nigeria Bar Association, the National Secretariat. We have a department that handles that. We have a legal department that takes care of that.
Okay, so that question of you being a judge in your own case.
No, it doesn't.
So it doesn't arise.
It doesn't arise.
So on a final note, what kind of...
We have various panels.
All right, so on a final note, what kind of MBA do we expect after this conference?
Thank you very much. Well, we expect a Nigeria Bar Association that will be more proactive, that would continue to engage the various stakeholders, particularly the government and public agencies, on the need to respect court orders, on the need to continue to hold the tenets of rule of law. If I'm talking about security is, of course, it's everybody's business, but it is the judge, the court, that determines at what particular time security interest comes into play. Present your case to the court.
Right.
Mr. Dun, we appreciate you coming on this morning. He's the publicity secretary of the MB, and the conference continues up until this Friday.
Thank you very much, sir.
So we will be back in a moment and focus on another matter that concerns everybody. Find out when we come back. Stay with us.